Hey everyone, 3 Samsung Galaxy S smartphones. I'm Josh Smith with GottaBeMobile.com, and today I want to show you the Samsung Galaxy S3, Galaxy S4, and Galaxy S5 in case you're interested in upgrading or buying your first phone. A lot of times we see carriers still have all of these phones available for sale, so you might see this for free, $99 and $199. Sometimes we see the price drop to $99, $50, or even $0, and sometimes free on this Galaxy S3. Or maybe you're looking to upgrade from the Galaxy S3 to the latest, or maybe just to last year's model. I want to run through some quick changes and design features. Now, overall, you'll notice that these phones are pretty similar in size. Now, if you check the description of this video, you'll see tons of photos so that you can actually see the size difference a little bit better. But you get some variety of features. We have a 4.8-inch display. We have a 5-inch or 4.97-inch display on the Galaxy S4 and a 5.1-inch display on the Galaxy S5. Now, the size isn't the only thing that changes between these. The display over here is actually going to be a lot brighter and a lot nicer looking. All of these are on the maximum brightness, and you might not be able to tell as much in the video, but right here we can tell it's okay, better, best. You get the brightest screen over here, and there's some different screen technology in here so that when I go outside, the screen will automatically get brighter. There's an ultra dimming mode, and there's even a mode that will make this screen go black and white so that your battery will last much, much longer. Now, the other differences that we see, we all have this same home button, physical home button. In the Galaxy S5, this is a fingerprint reader, so I can swipe my finger here to unlock the phone, to unlock some documents that I've hidden on the phone and locked up, and to make payments using PayPal. These two home buttons don't have that capability. We have capacitive buttons on the side, so small, almost touchscreen-like buttons on the side of each of these. And for the Galaxy S5, it's different. You can see here, this is a menu option. This is actually multitasking, and then if I want menu, I tap and hold. This is actually also a little bit nicer to get to Google Now. If you use that service, if you hold this, it's going to go right to Google Now. And I can just say, okay, Google. Okay, Google. And it will open up. I can't do that for either of these phones. If I hold this down and then tap, I can get to Google Now. And if I hold this down, I can tap and get to Google Now. So that's a little bit of a different thing there. In terms of the design, we see an upgrade as we move through each of these. This is a very, very plasticky design, one that Samsung was given a lot of attention for, not in a positive way, and it just doesn't feel real great. Now with the Galaxy S4, they upgraded to a new mix or blend of plastic, and there's a slight crosshatch design there. This feels better than the S3. The S5 now has a soft touch plastic. This white is actually an off-white, so that may be a turn-off. You might want to go with the black one or hold out for an electric blue model, but this definitely feels a lot better, a little easier to get a grip. Speakers on the back of these, speakers somewhere on the Galaxy S3, must be coming out the back somewhere on there. Now on the S4 and the S5, on the top you get an IR port, and so what you can do with this is control your HDTV. That's something that you don't find on the Galaxy S3. Headphones are on top for all of them. Camera wise, we have a 16 megapixel camera. You can shoot 4K video and 1080p video. This does 1080p video, and I believe this is a 13 megapixel camera. I may be wrong on that. Check the comments. And then on this one, we have an older camera. And if you, again, check the description, we're going to have a shootout to show you what these look like, what the photos look like on each of these different devices. Now, on all of these, you can peel the back off. And this is kind of a Samsung trademark feature that allows you access to two key things. So I can stick a micro SD card in each of these to add more storage, which is good because usually the storage you buy it with is limited. And what I can also do is I can pull these batteries out and stick a new battery in. Now the battery is larger in the Galaxy S5 in capacity-wise, even though it looks a little bigger. And what that means is you're going to get better battery life. And the screen is actually more power efficient on the Galaxy S5. I believe it's about 20% more power efficient. So if both of these screens are at the same brightness, this is going to use 20% less power. And that's going to translate into much longer battery life. Now you'll notice another key difference here when we look at the backs. There is a small rubber ring in here, and that's because the Galaxy S5 is water resistant. It's not waterproof. You cannot go stick this in feet and feet and feet of water, but it'll handle about 3 feet of water for 30 minutes. So that means if you drop it in a puddle, if you drop it in the sink while you're doing dishes, or pretty much all these little accidents that would otherwise render a phone useless, this will survive it as long as you have this back on tight and the little USB thing stuck in there to protect that. Both of these phones don't do that. If you want something like that, you're gonna have to stick one of these phones in a case. So like we have a life-proof case here for the Galaxy S3. And what's interesting is once we get this case on, we end up with a phone that is just about as thick as our Galaxy S5 and about as big. I'm not going to snap this in there right away, but that gets you a little bit more protection than these phones, or than just this phone on its own. So some people still may have a need for a case, even on the Galaxy S5. But that's a quick look at the differences between these devices. Now, again, there's going to be performance differences, and the Galaxy S3 is going to run an older version of Android, and you're going to get fewer updates at this point. We're approaching the middle of April 2014, and we're still waiting on an update for the Galaxy S3 to bring it up to par with these devices. But we're running the latest version of Android over here. There is a pulse reader back here, so if I pull my finger over this and use an S-Health app, I'm going to be able to track my pulse and measure that. Something that is not built in, but you can find some apps that will use the camera to do that. Thanks for watching. Check out the description for a link to more information about this, and you can head over to gottabemobile.com to see more on each of these smartphones.
When I was 14, a friend of my father bought this machine and went on vacation somewhere, and he lent it to me for 2 weeks. I was living in Normandy at the time at my parents' place, of course, 14 years old, what do you expect? And I did not leave the dining room where this thing was installed. I taught myself programming with this machine. It was a lot of fun, it was amazing, and from that moment in 1980, I was hooked. And then I discovered several years later something that you may not be familiar with. This is the French Minitel. It should have been the alternative to the internet. French wisdom and wizardry all at once in this little box. It was fantastic. It was fantastic because in this little box you could plug it into the phone system, and you could use big computers that you could never see, but they were there. You could use them. Instead of a small computer that was tiny and not very fast, you could access very large computer. It was fantastic, but it had one major issue. The system, the way the system was designed, was that basically it split the world in two parts. 99 or 99.9% of people were consuming things, and they were left in that side of consumers of data and services, and there was 0.1% of professionals, people who know what they could do with these mainframes, these big computers. They were the professionals, they had the control of them. And basically, if you had one Minitel, you were in the 99.9%. You could use it, You could not change anything about it, maybe paint the outside of the box. That was pretty much it. But the software, you had no control over it. It was exciting on one side to be using these huge computers, and at the same time, my freedom was completely limited, just using them as they were made available to me for a very high price on top of that. And something came, and it was the web. The web here is a screenshot of a web browser. The web browser is a piece of software, a software product that you install on your PC and that enables you to browse the web. At the time, we used a different word. We were saying that you could surf the information superhighway. It was really cool at the time. Now we just surf the web, and I mean, we don't care. I mean, we use the net, right? But at the time, it was really, really new, thanks to this new shiny piece of software that really looks ugly now that you look at it, right? But it was fantastic because for once, the internet that existed before that suddenly became usable, easy to use, simple. Double-click on the icon, displays the page, and you could surf by clicking on these blue links underlined over there, and you would be taken to the next document. It was really cool because of that. But what was really, really cool and completely different from the Minitel is that you could create your own stuff. At the time, everybody was creating his own page on the internet. We had nothing to say, but we wanted to say it anyway. And so I created this homepage, and this was my son's homepage. He wasn't born at the time. I think it was the first time on the internet that someone was crazy like me and wanted to create a homepage for someone that did not exist. Now, Robin, my son, is 17 years old and is doing just well. Thank you. So he was his own page before he was born. And I loved it because I could hack, I could create, I could invent something. And this was made possible by the simple thing. In the browser, you could view the source. You could see how the page was structured. This is what you get when you view the source of that exact same page I just showed you. Well, it's a little ugly, but believe me, if you spend 5 minutes on this, you will get it. You will understand how it works. You can copy, you can paste, you can learn from viewing the source, and you can hack like you would play with Legos. You could create your own page. It would be ugly, but it would work. That was just magic at the time. It was completely different from the Minitel because I could build something. And so there was that company who made the most popular web browser at the time that was hiring in Paris, where I was living. And so I decided to get hired by Netscape, which I did. It was an interesting company, a company that made something actually a bit weird in a sense that they made software that enabled people to access the web and view the source of the web pages, but at the same time, the software itself, the piece of software that we installed, was a proprietary piece of software. You could not view the source of the software itself. So basically, it was proprietary, but it would empower you to go do something open. I loved working at Netscape, but in '98, Netscape had some pretty dark times. It was unable to compete with giants of the internet, namely Microsoft. And so they decided, as a small company, they could not compete with Microsoft, and they had to change the rules. And what they did was just amazing. I think it was pretty crazy at the time. They decided that that piece of software, which source code was completely secret, it was the crown jewels. This piece of code would be put on the internet and will be published and made available for everyone. I suspect most people did not understand what it meant. Many people understood that it was becoming free. You didn't have to pay for it anymore. That was right, that was true, but really the big deal is that you could view the source code. And Netscape hoped at the time that thousands of people will show up and help build the next version of the browser. That was pretty crazy. And they called the whole thing, this project, they called it Mozilla. And they said, it's a bold move. No, it really is a crazy idea. And so, several years passed, and they couldn't make it work. Maybe this open source / free software thing was just crazy, and after a while they decided to give up. I was one of the employees, I was working on this, and like everybody else, I was laid off. Not cool times. And we decided to create a non-profit organization that would take this and continue the effort. And 1.5 years later, we released a new piece of software based on that work that was called Firefox 1.0. It was November 9th, 2004. And it worked. It worked because it was a product that really was a joy to use compared to the aging competing browser. And this is how it worked. In orange, you see the takeoff and the adoption of Firefox as a web browser. In just 1 year, we had 50 million active users. That was crazy. That was the power of the web, and all of this was made by a nonprofit organization. And today, well, today you have choice. You can choose whatever browser you want. You may want to go proprietary, although Richard Stallman would tell you it's a really bad idea, and use Internet Explorer, or you could use Chrome, which is a bit proprietary and a bit open source, or you could use Firefox, which is entirely open source. Do we live happily ever after? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Right? Making our dream come true. That would be nice. Yes, we went through the dark times, and have been the good times. But no. No. No, because things are turning dark again. And let me explain you why. This is a graph with the sales of PC in red and sales of smartphones in blue. This is 18 months old. And smartphones keep increasing. Basically, in 2012, more smartphones were sold than PCs. Means the PC is de facto a thing of the past. 2 billion people will discover the internet and connected devices in the few years coming from now. 2 billion. And what will they discover? They will discover the internet using smartphones and not PC, on which you have very limited choice of application. Look at that. Don't you notice the similarity, right, between the two? You put money in it, and you get products you can open and use. That's all you can do with them, right? No hacking, no creation, no nothing. You got to pay to participate, and you just consume what you're given. So the question is, how do we take the values of the web and bring them to the smartphones? This is the key issue. How can we empower people to participate and create applications on these devices and not to go back to the era of the Minitel, with the 99% we're obliged to consume and the 1% which are professionals and create for the mass? Well, this is what we want to do. This is what we're trying to do. We're building a web-based smartphone. Basically, it's a smartphone, and the only thing that runs on it is the web. This is it. So it really is easy for the web to create new stuff because it's the web. It was built for that, but we want to take this and put it on a smartphone. And it works. Here's an example of something that we're doing with a carrier in Spain and in 14 other countries, where we have created the software for these phones, which are made in China and sold in 15 countries. The interesting part, first, it runs the web. Second, it's inexpensive. Your price you see there, 59 euros, includes, it's the price of the phone, including 10 euros of communication included. It's a prepaid card, so it's not something you pay for, like 2 years. No, with that money, the phone is yours. And it's really is amazing. It works. It's a smartphone, except everything that runs on it is a web application. And we want to go further. Here's another example. We have built prototypes with a partner in China that will enable the phones that you see here that are basically phones that are worth less than $20 a piece. They will be sold by the end of the year by these partners. So this is really taking these freedom-based smartphones and expanding them all over the world. So here's my pledge to you. There was this crazy idea that you could serve the web. This other crazy idea that you could assemble, a community of volunteers to build a better browser. We're doing it again with a smartphone. With your help, thank you.